Okay, welcome back everyone to the final week with Chris Ward, our amazing teacher, who's been sharing all about Buddhist teachings on the Brahma Viharas. And this week, the final session, I believe, is on equanimity. And I would just want to say a big thank you to you, Chris, for taking the time and energy to share with us on One Tree. And we hope to do this again in future. So over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Yan. And I appreciate you inviting me to do these talks and the opportunity to share. And thank you for all the amazing work that you've done putting all of this entire month together. No small undertaking, I know. So I really appreciate that, the effort and the hard work. So thank you for that. So yes, today's talk on the topic of equanimity, a clear-seeing heart. If I had to, in a pithy way to define equanimity, that would probably be one phrase. But as this presentation unfolds, you'll probably get an understanding that it's such a large topic and it doesn't really fit in one definition very nicely. So as a way of kind of launching into today's program, I offer a poem by the great Sufi poet Rumi. Some of you might know this poem, it's quite famous, often quoted. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, and even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. Rumi had a real special talent for putting so much wisdom in so few lines. And so this idea of a field beyond wrongdoing and right doing, and that is really pointing at this quality of equanimity. Equanimity is this practice where we try to lie down in that grass. We try to really experience what the world might look like when we can let go of our preferences, how we wish things were a certain way, and we know they're not this way, but that way. Letting go of our prejudices and really attempting to experience life as it's unfolding. So some of the practices that are designed to do that are designed to allow one to see beyond language. Because the actual syntax of language holds all of our beliefs, all of our opinions, our preferences, our prejudices are coded, if you will, in the syntax of our language. And so just the very traditional mindfulness practice of when thoughts are there, we recognize the thoughts, we let them go and come back to the present moment. And the idea there is to arrive into the present moment in the felt experience, to actually just feel the body, feel the breath, hear the sounds. Each time we do that, we're actually stepping away from that stream of thought that covers out or covers, shields, veils that field beyond wrongdoing and right doing. So that's one of the tasks of equanimity. That's really the task at hand, is we start to see how our words, our thoughts, ideas are really creating a net or a field over our experience of life. And we tend to mistake that shroud of ideas, that shroud of verbal syntax. We mistake that for reality. And we miss the actual flavor of reality itself. In the Zen tradition, it's often pointed at by saying, the word water can't quench your thirst. So it's another very pithy instruction into that, that if you really want to quench your thirst, you actually have to drink the water, like that. So getting beyond the word into the actual felt experience of life. So as Yen mentioned at the beginning here, equanimity is one of the Brahma Viharas. And some of the Buddhist traditions, they're known as the four immeasurable minds. And I always like to bring this in because it plays such an important part in the path of liberation. We're really engaging practices, spiritual practices, meditation or yoga or contemplation or journaling or whatever your practice is, if we're really engaging that wholeheartedly, I think the idea there, at least for me, the idea is this sense of liberation. We become just a little more free. And so the Brahma Viharas are really designed to allow us to travel that path towards liberation, towards freedom. So equanimity is an integral part of that path. In fact, it's said to be a pairing with compassion, loving kindness, and joy. Because the Brahma Viharas, which translates to the home of the gods or the dwelling of the gods, so these are the components, the heart qualities where the gods hang out. Again, I like to bring that up because that's really pointing at that liberative quality. Right? So the idea is to have or cultivate or practice a sense of boundless compassion for for ourselves first, people we like, people we love, people we don't know, people we might not like very much, and then to the entire world. We do the same with loving kindness, and we do the same with joy. And what really allows that boundless quality is the sense of equanimity. That we can have disagreements with people and we can still wish them to be happy. We can, have opposing views towards people and we can still wish that those people be free from suffering. Like that. And so it's that quality of equanimity that allows us to enter into that boundlessness. So I mentioned equanimity can be defined in many, many different ways. And so I just thought I would create a list here of the definitions that I found in the Buddhist texts defining equanimity. This isn't an exhaustive list by any means. If you're familiar with the writings in the Buddhist canon, it's enormous. You could fill libraries and libraries with the texts that have been written. And so even with the technology, the internet and Google and things like that, I'm sure I didn't find all of the definitions of equanimity. So these are just a few of my favorites, the greatest hits, so to speak. So equanimity can be defined as experiencing life as it is, as we were just speaking to there, free from the words, free from our verbal syntax. Experiencing life free from preference and prejudice. To stand in the middle of, or in the midst of. And this is really pointing at the quality of equanimity that allows us to maintain a sense of groundedness and balance in the midst of difficulty, in the midst of struggle. That's another defining characteristic of equanimity. Related to that is the middle way. And so particularly in the later Buddhist traditions, in the Mahayana traditions, we see equanimity being used as a synonym to the middle way. A non-reactive space. I really like this one. This is equanimity as that open, spacious awareness, can sometimes be cultivated in mindfulness, which allows room, allows space for reactive emotions to arise, and they stay for a while and then they pass. So we maintain that sense of balance in the midst of reactive emotions. Also in the Mahayana traditions, it's not uncommon to see equanimity used as a synonym for enlightenment and nirvana itself. They're used quite interchangeably in some of the later Buddhist texts. And then one of my favorites also, and probably the one we'll spend a bit of time on here, is this idea to rest in the flux of the feeling tones. I know some of you might be thinking, well, what does that mean? Well, it really plays into this resting in that non-reactive space, and to stand in the midst of. Because difficulty arises as a feeling tone of unpleasant. We can also have the feeling tones of pleasant and the feeling tone of neutral. So I'll unpack all of that as we go. And so the feeling tones, which are known in the Buddhist tradition and in I think in other traditions that come from India, you might correct me if I'm wrong there, but often we see the word Vedana in Sanskrit and Pali. And Vedana, actually, the literal translation is feelings. But that translation proves to be problematic in the West, right? If you look up feelings in the Webster Dictionary, there's actually 14 different definitions. And so that's one of the reasons why it's problematic, is that, people say feelings, well, what do you really mean by that? Because it could be sadness or happiness or joy, a type of an emotional feeling. Or it could be, I have a feeling of, threat or danger, or I have a feeling of an ache in my ankle, whatever it is. So there's all these different ways of looking at that word. So feeling tones has become the translation of choice for about the last 30 or 40 years. And I think this is really descriptive of what we're trying to get at here. This tone which shades and colors our experience of life. And so it's really quite subtle. So, and fortunately for us and for many other scholars, there's only 3. That keeps it nice and simple. We just have pleasant feeling tones, or neutral feeling tones, or unpleasant feeling tones. And just as the gift of having a nervous system being born into a human body, just as a result of that, we're gifted with feeling tones. That's not optional. It's just a part of having a body. And so in every second of our experience, every moment that our nervous system contacts the environment, it gives rise to feeling tones. Even when we're sleeping, there's still feeling tones arriving into the nervous system like that. So this is kind of a map, if you will, of how feeling tones affect our experience and how they can bring us away from this open field of equanimity, or how we can use them to guide us into a sense of equanimity. So as I was saying, we have a sensory stimulus. The human body contacts the nervous system in every moment. And that sensory stimulus with the nervous system gives rise to a feeling tone. Pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. That's not optional. Can't do anything about that. It's just happening. It's like the eyes just seeing, right? Or the nose just smells. So we then, without practice, without a meditation practice or a practice of mindfulness or a practice of equanimity, we tend to just automatically interpret those feeling tones. We feel an attraction. If something has landed on us that's pleasant, we feel an aversion if something has landed on us that's unpleasant. Or we feel kind of indifference. if something is neutral, like that. And generally that's happening so fast that we don't notice it. One of the great benefits of mindfulness is it starts to slow this whole process down. So we have a pleasant feeling tone, which gives rise to an attraction in our body. We then move into a type of craving. Ah, that smells good. I want some of that. What's that? Lasagna. Oh, right, perfect. Run to the kitchen, right? And fill my plate, right? So this pleasant feeling tone, this pleasant odor gives rise to attraction, which gives rise to craving, could be desire or longing. And then it comes to an expression, right? Or if I'm, particularly watching my weight, I might say, ooh, no, lasagna, I can't have that. That's not good for me. We kind of push that desire back, right? Which is no good for the body either. That causes illness, right? And it works the same way with unpleasant too. So we have an unpleasant feeling tone, whatever it is that lands in our nervous system, giving rise to an aversion. We then respond or react to that aversion with anger or fear or dread or rage. Then we might bring that to fruition by yelling, kicking, punching, screaming, shouting, or we choke it back in the body. Oh, I'm a spiritual person and I meditate a lot and I shouldn't be angry. What will they think of me if I get angry, right? Causing the body illness like that. Same thing with the neutral feeling tone, kind of indifferent to that, which gives rise to numbness or prejudice or preference. It allows us to cling to our opinions and views. And we bring that to fruition out of, racism or prejudice or, discrimination against people who have different views than ours and so forth, like that. So that's the kind of the current state of things, unless we're practicing mindfulness, unless we're practicing equanimity or other forms of growth, spiritual growth. And we can kind of see how this is playing out in the world at large, right? You just have to turn on the news and you can kind of witness how this is unfolding. So kind of reiterating that, without awareness, pleasant feeling tones leading to craving, grasping, unpleasant feeling tones leading to, pushing away, don't want that, that's bad, can't have that. And also unpleasant feeling tones can kind of leave a lingering aftertaste. We might know this if we're out and about in our day and we run into somebody who we don't really like very much, kind of that frenemy. And we might have a conversation with them for a few minutes and then we kind of go our own way and we're like, holding on to that. Ooh, I wish I hadn't seen that person. That kind of thing that happens often with unpleasantness, without mindfulness, without awareness. And again, the neutral indifference leading to boredom, prejudice. Now, with mindfulness, with awareness, this really becomes quite a powerful transformation. So when we start practicing meditation, we start meditating on equanimity or really just cultivating a strong mindfulness practice. We have a pleasant feeling tone that arises. We notice that pleasant feeling tone. We notice that attraction. We notice that desire. We can rest in that. We don't need to go running to the kitchen to get a lasagna. And we don't need to repress it in the body either. We can just rest with it. Say, oh, that feels good. That smells great. Nice. It's a similar example. You can walk in the garden and look at the flowers, but you don't need to pick the flowers, right? So we can enjoy what's there. We can rest in that and just enjoy what's there. There's no grasping or clinging. With the unpleasant feeling tone, we recognize that everything that's born has a lifespan and has a death, including our unpleasant experiences. And so when there's unpleasantness in our heart, in our body, in our mind, whether it's an ache in the leg or a foul odor or the cat's causing some mayhem in the kitchen. Whatever that is, we know that that will arise and stay for a while and dissolve. So we can take heart in the impermanent nature of all experience. Now, the neutral feeling tone is really quite something. Because when we really can recognize, okay, this is neutral, and rest in that neutrality, it's no longer boring. We no longer have this sense of indifference towards that neutrality, because it represents one of the few places that the heart, body, and mind can actually rest. And that, particularly I find in this day and age, so powerful. When actually we can just look at the neutral feeling tone and just say, oh, I can rest with this. I don't need to pick up my phone to cover it up. I don't need to go to the kitchen and snack on something to save myself from feeling neutral. I don't need to turn the radio on, whatever it is, whatever our escape is. We can just rest in that neutral, and it becomes a space of joy and contentment, because we can find that peace, we can find that rest in that space. And for me, that's one of the real gold nuggets of this type of teaching. So we hold the neutral feeling tone in this field of equanimity, recognizing that we don't need to react or respond. We can just be there with it. And what a relief. What a joy that can be. Okay, so I've talked for quite a while here, almost 25 minutes. So I'd like to pause, see if there's any comments or questions or shares or concerns about any of that.
If anyone has any questions, you can type it in the box or just unmute yourself. Yeah, as I'm hearing you share, it just reminds me of the time I was spending 6 weeks in a monastery meditating, and I think I had heard a recording of the feelings of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. So then I started to sort of meditate specifically on when pleasantness would unrise, when unpleasantness would unrise, and when neutrality was there. But somewhere in my mind, I sort of thought neutral, I didn't see neutral as boredom. So it's kind of new to see boredom or indifference as falling into neutrality, or maybe I just didn't notice. But it was interesting, like, I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it in Buddhism they say that these feeling tones are like seeds that we have to pluck it out at this place where we catch that pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, and we have to unpluck at this place to really relieve ourselves of suffering. Is that right?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. So we can't really, I'll go back to the map here. Can you all see this? Can you see this, Yen, the slide?
Yes. Oh no, not the slide.
You can't see the slides? Okay.
Oh yes, no, sorry, we can't see the slide. I'm on my phone, so I've got 2 different views. Yeah, it's on my laptop. I can.
Okay. So we can't really get rid of the feeling tones, or you use the term pluck them out. We can't. That'll always be a part of our experience. Barring some serious sort of brain damage, something like that, which could have, like, I think somebody, even I guess in lockdown syndrome or something like that, the thoughts that you might have in that condition would give rise to feeling tones. So even then, I think that feeling tones would be a part of the experience. So the idea is with mindfulness, and mindfulness is really just the practice of being aware of what's happening in the present moment, right? And so with a good, consistent practice of mindfulness, we start to get more in tune with what's happening, more and more subtle levels. And so in this map here, in this chain reaction, maybe we come to a meditation practice or a mindfulness practice, and we do it for a few weeks or month or 2 months. We start to notice a separation between the reactive emotion that we feel and bringing it to fruition. So that space of equanimity starts to form around anger, for example. So it becomes evident that one can feel anger without moving into the habitual reactive patterns, whatever that might be. Yelling, kicking, punching, screaming, shouting. Those are the common culprits, right? And so we recognize that, oh, just because I feel anger doesn't mean I have to express it in this way. So other choices become available. We start to enter into a more creative way of living. With a little more practice, a little more attention, a little more mindfulness, we start to cultivate that field of equanimity a little earlier in that chain reaction. So we have the sensory stimulus, which gives rise to, let's keep with this example of anger. So giving rise to an unpleasant feeling tone, which gives rise to aversion. But then one might think, well, just because I feel a sense of aversion to this sound, smell, taste, experience, whatever it is, doesn't mean I have to get angry. So that field of equanimity is getting larger, right? We can hold more of our experience, right? And, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, 6 lifetimes later, doesn't matter how long, but eventually with all that practice, we have a sensory stimulus, which gives rise to that unpleasant feeling tone. But just because, thank you, just because there's an unpleasant feeling tone arising doesn't mean I have to interpret that with aversion, right? There's an unpleasant odor and there's just an unpleasant odor. And here things really start to become much more creative because we recognize the cohabitation of life. We were talking about this a bit in the joy condition where I can have an ache in my foot and still enjoy the sunrise. Right? We can hold space for the unpleasantness and recognize that there's also room for pleasant and neutral at the same time. And again, it is, going backwards through that map, it's that ever expanding field of equanimity. It just gets larger and larger and larger like that. Now, the benefit of catching it sooner and doing enough practice so that we can catch it at the feeling tone level, as you were kind of mentioning there again, is that it doesn't have momentum. We just, oh, that's unpleasant, and we just kind of move about the day. It doesn't, there's no stickiness to it. Whereas if we catch it at the anger stage, anger is so fast, and it becomes really tricky. And many of my students, they'll often report that when we do a practice like this for some time, they'll start to say, oh, I can feel the anger, but I don't know how to stop myself. It's like reaching for that cigarette when you've been smoking for 20 years. You shouldn't do it, but it just feels so right. And so it becomes tricky to catch it there. There's a lot of momentum. But, with patience, with practice, again, you start to kind of move up that chain reaction, and eventually one starts to catch it here. And that's why I put resting and equanimity there in that stage of the map. Yeah. Thank you for that question. It sounds like to me, again, if I may, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but it sounds like because you had already been practicing and you were in a monastery, it sounds like you probably had a lot of attention and mindfulness cultivated so that the neutral feeling tone never went into boredom. You were able to feel it there, right? And so when you can catch it there, it either stays neutral and we let it go, or it tends to move into joy or contentment like that.
Yeah. I think the main thing I noticed was my mind would just be like, oh, what now?
Yeah.
What now? Sort of waiting for something to happen almost.
Holding that space. Yeah. 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 Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Any other comments or questions or shares?
Nothing yet, so I think
All
you can carry
quiet?
on.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So it's all fine and good, right, to talk about this, but let me get the slide full screen here. But how does one practice it, right? So I have a little meditation here that I thought I would offer. And if you were here for the joy practice, or for the, I think we did a loving kindness practice in this way too, where we offer the phrases to our heart. And so today, in the interest of time, we'll just do this for about 10 minutes or so. But it, you know, in a traditional setting, one might do it for 20 minutes or half an hour. And so I'll just talk us through the practice first, and then we'll go ahead and do it. I'll ring the bell. I'll guide us into the silence of the present moment. We'll using the anchors of the sensations of the body, the breath, maybe some sound as well. And then in that stillness, we're invited to bring these phrases to our heart, as if we were offering ourselves a really precious gift. And with each phrase, we're then invited to visualize or imagine what our life would look and feel like if each phrase was completely reflective of our life circumstance. And so, as a result of offering the phrase to the heart, you might feel a pleasantness, an unpleasantness, or neutral. And so those are the feeling tones. And we're just going to work with the feeling tones here, just inviting the phrase and see what comes up for you. Not making the unpleasant feeling tones bad, not making the pleasant feeling tones good, but just noting, okay, that's unpleasant. That doesn't feel so good. Or that's pleasant. That feels really nice, you know. And the idea is to not to fall into pushing away or grasping, right? Just noticing what's there. So we'll do that for a few minutes, and then we'll come back to the present moment, and I'll open the floor up again for comments or questions. Okay. Enjoy. And so the invitation here is just to arrive into this present moment. There are many ways of arriving into the here and now, settling into this present moment experience. You might settle into the present moment by taking a nice, long, nourishing, deep breath. And inviting the out breath to be just a little bit slower or longer than the in breath. That longer, slower out breath often brings a sense of calm and stillness to the heart, to the body, to the mind. And in the next breath or two, you could just allow the breathing to return to its uncontrolled breathing pattern, just breathing normally, naturally. And perhaps noticing the other sensations which might be present as a result of the breathing process, the temperature changing from cooler to warmer at the nose and the back of the throat. You might notice the rib cage expanding and contracting with each breath, the rising and falling of the abdomen as you inhale and exhale. You might notice how the back moves out on the in-breath and in on the out-breath. The shoulders rising and falling as you breathe in and breathe out. And while we're here resting with the breath, you might also notice the sensations of the feet against the ground or the floor, the weight of the body against the cushion or chair or mat. And just noticing there the contact, the support, the feeling of groundedness that's being offered by the floor or the chair or mat. Recognizing that the floor, the chair, are really just substitutes for Mother Gaia, planet Earth. And if you can, feeling between or underneath the floor, down to the floorboards, the cement underneath the feet and the chair or the cushion. Eventually you reach Mother Gaia, planet Earth, this beautiful, amazing, life support giving planet. And so just extending a thought or two of gratitude for this support that's being offered from Mother Gaia through the floor of the chair. And we could continue arriving by noticing perhaps other contact points of the body, the hands resting against the body or touching each other. You might also notice sensations of clothing against the shoulders. And sensations arising from the top of the head. Really acknowledging the body connecting heaven and earth. The top of the head reaching up. The base of the body connecting down. And in this open, spacious awareness, we begin to offer ourselves these most precious phrases of equanimity. And with each phrase, visualizing or imagining what our lives might look and feel like if each phrase was completely reflective of our own life circumstance. May I be free from preference and prejudice. May I know things just as they are. May I experience the world knowing me just as I am. May I see into whatever arises. Breathing, resting, just noticing what's there, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And if you become distracted by thought, that's quite normal. Noticing the distraction, returning back to the present. And offering these phrases of equanimity to the heart. May I be free from preference and prejudice. May I know things just as they are. May I experience the world knowing me just as I am. May I see into whatever arises. Resting, breathing, feeling, noticing what's there. And here the invitation is to allow any visualizations which may have arisen to dissolve. Just allowing those to fade back into the open, spacious awareness from which they came. If you wish, here listening to the sounds of your present moment environment, just noticing whatever sounds are there, loud sounds or quiet sounds. Listening to the soundtrack of the present moment. Connecting again with planet Earth, Mother Gaia, feet against the floor or the ground, the weight of the body against the cushion or chair. Noticing sensations arising from the hands, the shoulders, the top of the head, perhaps. Connecting with the breath, sensations from the nose to the abdomen to the nose. And so in the next few breaths, we'll begin to shift away from this practice and back into a conversational space. I'll cue that by ringing the bell 3 times. Thank you all for joining me in that practice. And if you're watching this back on recording and you want to stay in that longer, press pause now and you're welcome to explore that as long as you wish. But for those of us who are here live, opening up the room again for any comments or questions or concerns about the phrases perhaps, or about the practice in general.
Let me see if I can. There's a question in there somewhere. I just
take some time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crystallize.
So, how do I want to phrase this? Is it wrong to see equanimity as like a quality or character trait? You know what I mean? Because there's then the mind will try and do equanimity, I'm equanimous, you know, and instead of seeing into the spaciousness or seeing into the equanimity that is already there. You see what I mean? Like it already exists. We just have to somehow locate it within ourselves, versus the mind or the personality trying to be equanimous and you know, I'm level-headed. Because there's a very subtle doing on one side that I feel like the mind can really want to jump in and do equanimity. I don't know if it's coming out in the question, but I don't know if you have any experience with that or how to get beyond that if the mind tries to jump in and feign equanimity, which can normally be could almost be like a resistance or something. Or maybe I've just heard people use it in the wrong tone. You know.
I couldn't answer that, but I think your question does point to something very important. And it's not only the case with equanimity, but it's the case with all of the Brahma Viharas. You know, we come to a practice like this, and who doesn't want to be more loving and kind, right? Who doesn't want to be more compassionate or joyful or equanimous, right? So yeah, I you know, quite often I think somebody comes to a practice like this, and you know, you offer a phrase like that to the heart, may I be free from preference and prejudice, and immediately preferences and prejudices jump up. And the mind starts to say, oh, I can't think about that, right? And so, you know, ironically, that is a move of judgment, right? Then we're not being equanimous. We're judging our experience, and we're saying it should be A, not B, right? Rather than holding the entire experience. When we're holding the entire experience, then we're actually being equanimous with our experience. And that's really the idea. But yeah, so none of the Brahma Viharas, we don't want to create a model of that and try to fit into that model, because then we're just creating an inauthentic way of being in the world, right? And that's not good for anyone. And so the idea is to really be open to whatever experiences come. And in a way, you know, the mindfulness instruction of just being with the breath and allowing the thoughts to go and returning, in that whole process, we see how our mind is. We see how our body is in that process, and our mind and our heart. And if we can just be in that without judgment, we're cultivating equanimity. And really, there's, you know, we can continue on that line of thinking and really expand it out to everything. in every moment, there's an opportunity to practice equanimity, you know. So I also want to, speak to that a little bit in that, we don't want to get into also, if we're practicing equanimity, there can be this tendency to just let, transgressions pass, or people are, we don't want to use these practices to condone bad behavior or people who are causing harm and suffering in the world, right? So when we say, may I know things just as they are, that phrase is really asking us to know that there is suffering and struggle in the world, and then to try to move to alleviate that without the preference and prejudice that not be happening. The preference that we prefer that that's not happening, ideally, and the prejudice that it shouldn't be happening, right? We actually see the world as it is, and then in that seeing, we can move forward with kindness, with compassion. So we take the emotional charge out of our resistance to what is, and so we're more, we can be more open to the suffering of the world without resisting it, because there is suffering in the world, right? And if we're caught in the idea that shouldn't be happening, we're going to be a lot less likely to be compassionate and kind in that situation. We'll be much more reactive, right? We're much more likely to, judge the person who's causing that type of suffering and harm, rather than stepping away from that judgment and holding that person with compassion and saying, well, how can I help you? What can I do here to alleviate this? So that's the quality of equanimity. When equanimity meets compassion, it becomes that boundless state, like that. So yeah, thank you for that question. It does lead into a very, very rich discussion where we could spend hours going over that. And I know we don't have that kind of time today, but thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, it really helps to unpack these concepts a lot more, I find. When you just hear it on a recorded teaching, and you can't have that opportunity to ask the questions around it, then your mind just comes up with its own conclusions sometimes. So I really think it's important to have those discussions.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good way to mention to people who are watching this back on video. I'm always available, and so feel free to email me. I'll put my website information at the comment section at the bottom of the video. So please, anyone who's watching this, if questions or concerns or comments do come up, always feel free to message me directly, or you can post them there in the One Tree community as well. So always happy to get questions.
Shanaka says, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
And if anyone has any final questions or comments, feel free to unmute or ask. And Chris, feel free to share about any future retreats that you're holding.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I've been practicing the Brahma Viharas consistently, 3 months per Brahma Vihara for about 15 years now. 2004, I think I started that pattern. And they keep bringing results. And so as an extension of my practice, I started offering 8-week courses on the Brahma Viharas. We're right in the middle of our equanimity course now, but I'm launching Loving Kindness December 1st. There's 2 sections to accommodate 2 different time zones. So you can find out more about the Loving Kindness course on my website, which will be in the comments there. But just to mention it, it's suchsweetthunder.org. I'm also hosting a 12-week online retreat focusing on the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And you might notice, if my math serves me correctly, 4 plus 8 equals 12. And so that's why it fits into the 12-week structure really nicely. We'll spend about a week going over each of those and really engaging in practices that bring this, what is often looked at as a philosophy, to bring them into this philosophy or these philosophies into our life so that we can actually use them in a pragmatic way. Yeah, and those are the 2 courses that I'm offering, launching in December, but there's courses running year round. Thank you
for sharing this, Chris. Yeah, and I will share Chris's contact details and website if anyone wants to follow him up and attend one of his courses. So on that note, I want to thank you again, Chris, for your time and energy and sharing with the One Tree community. And yeah, let's do this again soon.
I look forward to it. And thank you so much. Thanks again. And thanks again for all of your work. Yeah, it's really wonderful what you're doing.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.